All right, let's get into this deep dive. It's going to be a dark one, but I think it'll be really fascinating. We're going to be looking at a German hip hop group, Doza Crew. And they're really interesting. They've got this whole thing with zombies and plagues and societal collapse, but they set it all to these really catchy beats. It's pretty wild. So we're going to be looking at a collection of their lyrics, and yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Way more than just flesh-eating monsters.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Doza Crew, they've really kind of carved out this unique space in German music. You know, they've got that hip-hop energy, but all these really dark, apocalyptic themes on top of it. And what's really interesting is that the lyrics aren't just about, cheap thrills and gore. I mean, they tap into these anxieties about, like the state of the world, like social isolation, the fear of losing our humanity, even what it means to survive when, like, everything is falling apart around you.
Okay, so let's dive right into this decaying world. Doza Crew has a bunch of songs that feature zombies. Tracks like Ewiger Streifzug, Infekt, Nebelnacht. Oh, and Schattenwesen. And what really gets me is how vivid the imagery is. Like, you can almost see these shambling hordes of zombies and smell the decay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Doza Crew really paints this visceral picture of this post-apocalyptic world. Like in Ewiger Streifzug, for example, they talk about this endless zombie march through empty city streets. And there's this one line that I think really captures this whole feeling of relentless doom. It's, Ihre Schritte klingen durch die leere Stadt, ein endloser Marsch, der keinen Halt hat. It's like this unstoppable tide of decay is taking over.
And it's not just the visuals, right? They use these sounds, too, to create this really unsettling atmosphere. Like in Schattenwesen, you get all these guttural primal sounds like ooh, 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 and blah, wah. It's like they're giving these zombies a voice, even though they're supposed to be mindless creatures.
Yeah, it's incredibly effective. It really highlights the loss of human connection. That comes when society collapses, It's like language itself is breaking down along with everything else. But, beyond the flesh-eating and the eerie soundscapes, Doza Crew is really tapping into something deeper. It's like they're using zombies as a metaphor for like a broader societal sickness.
Yeah, Infekt is a great example of that. It's not just about like a physical virus, but also the sense of fear and paranoia. It just seems to be spreading through society like a contagious disease. And then you've got a song like Fierabend, which explores isolation and loneliness, even though it's set in this bustling city.
Exactly. And you know what makes Doza Crew so interesting is this contrast. You've got these bleak lyrics about decay and despair, but then the music is so energetic, almost defiant. It's like a musical representation of the human spirit, pushing back against the darkness.
Yeah, like even in the face of all this horror, there's still this urge to create, to find beauty, to keep moving. And one of the things that stood out to me was this recurring motif of this life, or like a loop that pops up in a few songs. I'm curious to hear your take on that.
So what's fascinating about the Schleif motif is that it works on multiple levels. Like on the surface, it refers to the zombies being trapped in this endless cycle of wandering and consuming. But then on a deeper level, I think it also speaks to a more universal human experience, this feeling of being stuck, whether it's a dead-end job or a toxic relationship, or even just negative thought patterns that just keep replaying in your head. Like we're all caught in these loops, struggling to break free and find a path forward. It's like that line in Nebelnacht, zwischen Leben und Tod, in just fang ich an, between life and death, I'm caught in the loop. It's like this in-between state where you can't escape. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, for sure. And the fact that they layer this concept of being trapped over these driving or rhythmic beats, it's fascinating. It creates this tension between the bleakness of lyrics and the energy of the music, almost like dancing at the edge of the abyss.
Exactly. And that contrast is so important to understanding what Doza Crew is doing with their music. It's not just about wallowing in despair. It's about finding ways to cope, to find meaning, even to create beauty in the midst of all this decay. The driving beats, the catchy melodies, they're like a lifeline, a reminder that even when the world is falling apart, we can still find joy and connection through music.
It's like even the darkest of times, the human spirit finds a way to express itself, to push back against the void. And for Doza Crew, music is that outlet. It's their way of processing these complex emotions and anxieties, and maybe even offering a glimmer of hope to their listeners.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging the darkness, but not letting it consume you. And I think that's reflected in their musical style, too. You have those elements of traditional German industrial music, which is known for its harsh mechanical sounds. But then you also have those melodic hooks and the hip-hop rhythms, and it just adds this layer of accessibility and even a sense of fun.
It's like they're blending these different musical influences to create something totally unique, something that reflects the complexity of the human experience. And speaking of unique, one of the things that really impressed me about Doza Crew was their use of language. Even when they're describing these gruesome scenes, there's a real poetic quality to their lyrics.
Oh, their lyrical skill is undeniable. They just have this knack for crafting these evocative images and metaphors that really stick with you, like in Firebend, where they talk about Seelensteinlese im Chaos verloren, soul screams silently, lost in chaos. It's such a powerful image. And it speaks to that feeling of being overwhelmed by the chaos of the world, of feeling lost and alone, even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah, that line really got to me too. And then there's the way they use metaphors to explore this theme of societal collapse, like in Infect, where they compare the spread of the zombie virus to this creeping paranoia that infects the mind. The line, der Gesicht sieht die Schatten schief, spürt ihr den Stachel, der durch die Gedanken grieft. It's so chilling. And it speaks to that fear of losing control, of our minds being poisoned by fear and distrust.
It's brilliant how they weave these metaphors into the narrative of the zombie apocalypse. It becomes more than just a story about flesh-eating monsters. It's like a commentary on the state of our world, on the anxieties and fears that we all share.
And it makes you wonder if their perspective is uniquely German, right? Germany has such a rich history and culture, and they've experienced so much social and political upheaval over the centuries. Do you think that informs their artistic vision?
I think it's definitely something to consider. You know, German art and literature have always grappled with these themes of destruction and rebirth, of confronting the darkness in order to find the light. And you can definitely see echoes of that in Doza Crew's music. It's not about shying away from the difficult questions. It's about facing them head on and finding a way to make sense of it all.
And maybe that's what makes their music so resonant, even for those of us who don't speak German. There's something universal about the themes they explore, the anxieties they tap into. It's like they're giving voice to the fears that lurk in the back of all our minds, the unease we feel about the state of the world.
It's like they're holding up a mirror to society, forcing us to confront the darker aspects of ourselves and the world around us. But within that reflection, there's also this flicker of hope, this belief that even in the midst of chaos, we can find ways to connect, to create,
to persevere.
It's interesting, though, because they're highlighting all these societal anxieties, but they're using this really extreme lens to do it. I mean, zombies aren't exactly subtle, are they? Oh. Right, but I think that's part of what makes it so effective. You know, the zombie apocalypse, it acts as this larger-than-life metaphor that allows them to explore these themes in a way that's both visceral and thought-provoking. It's like they're taking these very real human anxieties and just amplifying them to the point where we can't ignore them.
And in doing so, they're forcing us to confront some pretty uncomfortable questions about what it means to be human. Like if the zombie apocalypse is a metaphor for societal collapse, what do the zombies themselves represent? Are they just mindless monsters, or are they something more?
That's a great question, and I think Doza Crew offers a few interesting perspectives. On the one hand, the zombies embody this fear of losing our humanity, of being reduced to our most primal instincts. They represent the breakdown of reason, of empathy, of everything we consider civilized.
Like in Infect, where the narrator describes their transformation into a zombie. There's that line, Im Spiegelbild verblasst mein Gesicht, die alten Erinnerungen verlieren ihr Licht. It really captures that feeling of losing yourself, of becoming something other. It's almost like a warning about the dangers of conformity, of losing our individuality to societal pressures.
Exactly. Like if we're not careful, we just become these mindless consumers driven by our basest desires with no critical thinking skills. But at the same time, there's also this sense of liberation in some of their lyrics, like in Schattenwesen, where the zombies describe themselves as einst ein Mensch, sei, nun nur noch Schatten, verlorene Träume, verwandert in Schmerz, It's like in losing their humanity, they've also been freed from the pain and suffering of the human experience.
It's an interesting paradox. They're trapped in this mindless state,
Yeah.
but also liberated from the anxieties and pressures.
Yeah.
Being human.
It's a really complex exploration of what it means to be human, and it shows Doza Crew's ability to go beyond just the surface level and grapple with these really profound questions. They're not offering easy answers, but they force you to think critically about the world and your place in it.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about finding all the answers, but about keep asking questions, to keep challenging yourself and the world. Because in a world that can often feel as uncertain and chaotic as a Doza Crew song, the ability to think critically, to question, to search for meaning might be the most important tool we have.
Absolutely. Doza Crew's music reminds us that even in the face of darkness and despair, there's always the potential for transformation, for resilience, for finding meaning and connection. It's a message that resonates deeply, especially in a world that can feel so overwhelming and chaotic.
So as we come out of this deep dive into the dark and poetic world of Doza Crew, I want to leave you with a final thought. If their music is a mirror, reflecting our anxieties about the future, what are the schleifen, the loops, that we need to break free from in our own lives? What are the things that are holding us back, that prevent us from reaching our full potential?
And maybe more importantly, where can we find the strength, the creativity, the hope to push back against the darkness and create a better future for ourselves and for the world?
Those are some questions worth thinking about. And maybe, just maybe, Doza Crew's music can help us find those answers.